make you presenter? Potentially. The boss lady could probably do that.
Yeah.
Where's Tubby at?
No. She wanted to bring it.
Chewing on your couch up before?
No, he hasn't done that yet. I just wouldn't want him leaving a pile on the
There you go.
hard.
He's right in the middle over here.
Yeah, yeah.
Should look a little bit better. Can you? I think you can see the edge. Will be understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait for a few more minutes if we can, just to.
Nice to see you.
And she also forgot to sign the sheet, so I'll get that too. Because technically, you're supposed to pull from the sign-in sheet.
Oh, for comment.
For comfort, yeah. For
Yeah.
comment.
I think we just met downstairs. Where we just want to take you guys. See where you're at, where you're headed. I did. Cashiers, man, today is. Yeah, you should have brought the appetizers, right? How come there's never any sandwiches and shipwreck anymore? Yeah, what happened? Still says simply organic on the refrigerator. Uh-oh. You too?
That's very true.
Hmm?
It's got like a 10-second lag on it.
So we can hit.
In case you curse.
Exactly. We're gonna hit the beat. When I did the, I think Arm's King 5 or whatever news report on the wastewater treatment plant, the reporter and I tried to get them to let me say shit. And they were gonna beat me out, because I told her it was like a lifelong goal for me to be beat out on television. Well, they cut it all up in editing and took that out. Someday.
Yeah, you get there.
I wonder how many she's printing out. She's probably gonna be a couple minutes.
What, it must be like 30 pages each or something, isn't it?
They didn't press complete.
It's not sorted, she has to go through as well. Puts each.
Attendance, it looks like.
Either way. Chair Rutherford, we can probably get started as long as we don't start the public hearing until she gets here.
Okay, I think we can
I'm
do
not
that.
sure if the capable assistant over there doesn't have.
How to start recording?
Yeah.
Do you know how to start recording, Sage?
She'll figure it out.
Just
What's the worst that happens?
smush the keypad.
Say, Alexa, record.
We'll get started with some of the preliminary stuff while we wait for staff to get back with some agenda packets.
We're just too fancy now.
Dave's got an electric car, he'll figure it out.
There's an electric truck, 2 electric cars.
Right here?
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
I see no recorder start. We'll have to wait.
Okay.
Maybe it's going. They're ready. Says live.
Really?
Corner.
Where did Jen go?
Oh, she's coming up right now.
She's making some copies of the.
She's got some meeting packets.
We're trying to see if it's already recording or not.
It is recording.
Oh, it is?
I'm having technical difficulties with my printer, so I apologize, but
Oh, that's all right.
here's one, and then do we want to put it up there?
Yeah, we'll put it up there. I think Ryan will have it up there when he's doing it.
Oh, perfect.
But I don't know if anybody
Okay.
over there doesn't have their tablet
anybody
or whatever.
need this?
Or Dave might need one. Do you need
We
one?
sent it down there.
What's that?
Do you want a hard copy? Should
No,
we
I
have
got it
one?
on my phone. I'm just gonna use this.
Yes.
Okay, so we're recording. Get started. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the October 5th, 2022 meeting of the Tenino Planning Commission. Let the record show that all commissioners are present with the exception of Aaron Conradi, who has an excused absence. We have a public hearing tonight, so let's take a look at the agenda for this evening and let me know if you guys see any need for corrections.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, all those in favor?
Just gonna get a second.
Yeah. Second. Oh yeah, sorry, apologize. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the minutes from the September 21st, 2022 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 22 meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving ahead, do we have any non-public hearing related public comments this evening? I'm assuming not, but okay. That said, do we have any reports from the mayor? No. All right. Moving right along. Okay, so at this point, we'll move into the public hearing portion of the meeting. The public hearing is now open for the purpose of considering the 5-lot preliminary plat for the city's Southwest Washington Agricultural Business and Innovation Park. The procedure I'd like to follow is as follows. We'll begin with the staff report. We'll move on to questions from the Planning Commission. The applicant will make the presentation, the proposal. There'll be time for public testimony, and then the applicant will have an opportunity to respond. At this point, does any commissioner wish to disclose any personal or financial interest in this matter before us tonight, or does any commission member wish to report any significant ex parte or pre-hearing contacts? All commissioners must respond yes or no.
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 No. Okay. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the right of any commissioner to hear this matter? Not hearing any objections. Is there any member of the audience who wishes to question the jurisdiction of this body as appointed by the Tenino City Council to hold a public hearing and make a recommendation on this matter? Nope. Okay. At this point, we'll allow the staff an opportunity to present their report based on their review of the application.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Rutherford. This is Dan Penrose, contract planner for City of Tenino. I'm going to start out with just a little bit of background and context, and then I'm going to hand it over to Ryan Patrick Shea, the planner who prepared the staff report, for a detailed overview of that staff report and our recommendations. So this property is owned by the city. As you know, it hosts the city's wastewater treatment plant. It's just over 20 acres, zoned public, semi-public, and it proposes to, the application proposes to divide the property into 5 lots. One of the lots which will contain the wastewater treatment plant, and the other 4 lots will have potential for future development. You know all about the Southwest Washington Agricultural Business and Innovation Park. We've talked about it before, but for the purposes of those in the audience and potentially online and for the record, that master plan envisions agriculturally related uses that have a value add to our region, where you take potentially a raw material and convert it into something that has greater value, and that is a initiative that was started by both the city and Thurston Economic Development Council, and supported by efforts of Port of Olympia, as well as a series of other development types in our region. So it's long been a goal to focus on development out there, and we are at a spot where we have some development potential, but in order to facilitate that development potential, the property needs to be divided in a way that allows it to be leased and assessed costs for the future improvements on a kind of equitable basis. So this particular public hearing is not for any buildings or any uses that will occur on that. Those uses and the buildings will likely come later when the plat is finalized and then a building permit is submitted. If that building is larger than 5,000 square feet, it triggers the SEPA checklist requirement, and we would bring back kind of a report on that activity in None of those cases, though, would that be back in front of the planning commission or the city council. So this is the planning commission's opportunity and the council's opportunity to review the appropriateness of the type of division that's occurring at the parcel and make sure that it is that it does meet the standards outlined in the code. So with that kind of background, I will turn it over to Ryan Patrick Shea. He is coming to us live from Sandpoint, Idaho. And Ryan, can you hear us? All right, I'll turn it over to you for going through that staff report.
Can you all hear me all right?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, good evening everyone. So, Dan gave you a bit of the history and the background. That's better, thank you. And I'm just going to basically go over the staff report. And I'm not going to get into hyper amounts of detail. I want to go over the staff report just generally in this presentation. I just don't really want to regurgitate what is already in the report. If you have any specific questions, feel free to interrupt me or ask me after I'm done. So tonight I really wanted to go over 5 things. There'll be a little overlap with what Dan just chatted with you about, but I want to go over the overview of the subdivision process, overview of the application, compliance with the Tenino Municipal Code and other standards, the notification process and comments received, and then finally staff recommendations and conditions. So let me see here. I'm going to try to share my screen. Number 2. Can you see my screen? It should have the agricultural park plat on it.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so you have before you tonight a preliminary plat application. The Planning Commission recommends approval or denial of this process to the City Council. The approval of the preliminary plat gives an applicant the ability to make necessary improvements to the site. When I say improvements, I mean basically the infrastructure, improvements like stormwater, things like that to support the site that are necessary to make it ready for lots. Once these required improvements are done to the city's satisfaction, final plat can then be applied for, and then the lots after that become additional. So I wanted to go over just a quick overview. Dan gave you a little bit of this already, but the applicant is requesting to subdivide, as the plat shows, the parcel housing the wastewater treatment facility into 5 lots, with one of those lots housing said wastewater treatment facility. There will be an internal driveway / road system to access each of these new lots. And it should be stated at this point, and this was actually pointed out incorrectly in the staff report, that at least at this point, these roads are not to be dedicated to the public. They're intended to be created as a private system, and that is to be maintained by the owners of the lots. So as I stated, well, yeah, don't need to repeat that. Let's see here. So access to the plat is proposed in 2 spots off of Old Highway 99 Southeast. Old Highway 99 Southeast in this area is under city jurisdiction, and Track C, which Track C is the internal roadway system. You'll notice that it dead ends into the adjacent parcel to the west. That adjacent parcel is the miles sand and gravel parcel. So, as I understand it, negotiations have occurred previously between Miles Sand and Gravel and the city with potential access through their access road that is adjacent to the west side of this parcel, running north-south. So I guess if you can see my mouse, the road basically runs like that. Or it's not even a road; it's really just like a driveway access. So negotiations have occurred to potentially use that as access in the future. Hence, why this dead ends here as it does. But to be clear, at this point in time, this road cannot be used for access through the parcel to the west, maybe in the future. So as it stands, I mean, it's a dead end road. One of the potential things to come out of this from a fire standpoint is fire would likely want to see some kind of turnaround here, which isn't really that difficult to accommodate for given the size of these parcels. So at this point, are there any questions?
Not yet.
Was that
No.
someone
Nope.
had a question?
Nothing yet.
Okay, thank you. I can hear you okay, Dan, but I don't think I can hear most everyone else. Okay, so next I was going to go over the compliance with Tenino Municipal Code and other standards, and specifically on the staff report, I'm looking, starting at page 3, which is the section that says applicable land development regulations. So once again, I won't go into too much detail here, but I wanted to run through it with you all. So the first thing that planning staff looks at when they're looking at compliance to development code is dimensional standards, and are they meeting? Is the applicant meeting acreage requirements? Are they meeting frontage requirements? Things like that. As you can see from the standards, this zone, which is public, semi-public, the dimensional standards are quite minimal, and that's really what these NAs mean. There are no standards. The required setbacks are very minor, but obviously at this point there are no setbacks because there's no buildings being proposed, so all of that stuff will be handled later. Dimensionally, the plat meets the standards of code. So another section of code that staff looked at was concurrency, and that's page 4 of the staff report. Specifically, Title 108 is the concurrency section that applies to citywide. And concurrency really talks about and requires infrastructure being available to serve proposed development, and specifically talks about basically the following sections that are included in here, with the first being stormwater. So condition number 1 on page 1 of the staff report is the condition that is meant to address the stormwater requirements. They're pretty straightforward. So moving through here, requires fire and emergency medical service be provided to the site. These new lots have access off of the old highway, and this is not anticipated to be an issue. Like I mentioned before, there will be other requirements likely between preliminary plat and final plat levied by or required by the fire department. And that's things like turnarounds and potentially additional hydrants and things like that. So in terms of water availability, it is available to the site currently. Transportation and transit facilities, so no transit facilities are anticipated. Internal driveway system is proposed as being the method to provide access to each of the lots. Electrical services is available via Puget Sound Energy. And then sewer finally is available, and capacity, the capacity is just fine at this point. The sewer capacity is at about half of what it could accommodate. And then schools are, the uses here are not anticipated to be residential, so impact to schools will be minimal. But if school impact fees are required per impact fee schedules via fees and whatnot, that would be taken care of. So the next section is tree preservation. That's on 4 and 5. A bit of an interesting requirement in Tenino Code, requiring at least 25% of the significant trees on a property be maintained. So the trees within this this project site they're located on future lot 1. So basically on the north side of the existing wastewater treatment facility. The rest of the site is tree-less, so the trees that are there right now are not anticipated to be impacted. So moving on, the next section is Title 112. Title 112 is the city's critical areas ordinance. And really the main takeaway from the critical areas ordinance review is there is a critical area, or critical aquifer, a recharge area that is present, which is present in much of the county, so not a huge surprise. However, conditions number 2 and 3 are meant to address the presence of the CARA. There are no, I'm sorry, what was that?
No questions, I don't think yet.
Okay. So there are no frequently flooded areas. There are no geologically hazardous areas. And then for fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas, there is a small section of prairie, primarily in the southeast portion of the plat, and then the Mazama pocket gopher MPG is potentially present because there was, I guess, identified as potentially present because of the soils present, and that's through the county's GIS information. However, there was a survey and study done in 2019/2020 searching for MPG, and it was found that no MPG presence was found on the site. And there was also previous surveys done in 2005, 6, 7 with the same results. So moving on to Title 114, which is the subdivision and platting section. The section here really focuses on improvements required. Improvements required can cover a wide variety of things, including trails. Trails are typically required if they're identified as a needed improvement per like a community's trail plan or something in their comprehensive plan. There are no trail corridors identified in the comp plan along this corridor, so nothing is attached or required there, or at least recommended for approval. And let's see here, things like water, things that I've really kind of covered: storm drainage, fire protection, sanitary sewer, streets. And this is where one of the errors was located in streets. The applicant does not propose establishing private streets. As I stated before, that is not true. And then street frontage improvements, basically recommended condition number 6 was added for that, and that basically just says that the applicant shall follow the requirements within the subdivision code, which talks about improvements and using the city's adopted guidelines and things like that. So common areas and facilities. Now with the tracks being proposed for stormwater and utility/access tracks, I mean these are tracks that'll fall under common ownership. So that's where this requirement is stemming from, and that's recommended condition of approval number 7 to address that issue. So basically it's requiring a document to be submitted along with final plat approval, and that document would be recorded in conjunction with the actual plat map, which articulates the requirements for common ownership and how that's handled, etc. Okay. Moving on to the quote-unquote other standards. So, in conjunction with this application, a SEPA review was completed, and this SEPA review really kind of looks at a number of potential impacts that this development can cause, and it's basically what I already talked to you about in the critical areas ordinance when we reviewed that. The Mazama pocket gopher is one of the potential issues, which was addressed for that study, and then the critical aquifer recharge area, which is addressed with those 2 conditions that I referenced. And ultimately, the city concluded that a determination of non-significance was warranted for the SEPA review. So the next up, I just want to cover the notification and public comment process. So the notification, or rather the notice of application / notification of the public hearing tonight was posted on September 14th, providing for a 15-day comment period that ended last Thursday, the 27th. The staff report basically says, well, it does say, no comments have been received. This staff report was completed right before we received 2 comments, and those comments were from, actually, public comments. There was 1 received, and then there was the other one I'm referring to as an agency comment. So the 1 comment received is part of your packet. I'm trying to think of what page it's on. Did you say 54? That's Department of Ecology. Okay, here we go. Found it. So it's PDF page 50, attachment 3. And this letter was from Miles Sand Gravel, and essentially Miles Sand and Gravel is asking for a note to be placed on the plat stating that a mineral extraction facility sits adjacent to the proposed plat, to basically make business / buyers aware of that fact. Staff concurs with this requirement, and we recommend that such a requirement be added to the list of conditions as part of the approval, if you so choose to approve it. And to be clear, that's in addition to the 7 conditions that are already included. And in addition to this public comment, agencies and city departments were also asked for comments, and comments were received from the city engineer. The city engineer comments were basically in relation to some minor notational requirements, and the Department of Ecology also sent in comments pretty late, following when me finishing the staff report, since they were not they are attached though. Got those in. So the Department of Ecology's comments pertain to solid waste management, toxic cleanups, if any are suspected or discovered, and erosion control measures. These comments appear to be fairly boilerplate and standard that generally apply to most all projects around the state. So, the last thing I wanted to go over was just the conditions. So on page 1 of the staff, I think it's page 1 and 2 of the staff report, we have the staff recommendation, which is to, we recommend that the planning commission approve the application for the 5-lot subdivision with the following conditions. And we have 7 conditions there. These are fairly straightforward conditions to take care of the various issues that we identified as we were going through code. In addition, we would like you to consider adding 2 more conditions, and I already talked about one, which was the placing of a note on the face of the plat stating that the lots are adjacent to an existing resource extraction facility. And then 2, a condition that the Department of Ecology requirements contained with the letter dated September 29th, 2022 are adhered to. And potentially a condition stating that the applicant is proposing private streets and they are simply required to be consistent with the city subdivision code. There is one specific requirement in regards to private streets, but it's kind of a general requirement that they simply must meet the city's adopted standards for private streets. So kind of boilerplate. It's not necessarily required, but I thought it might clear up the process a bit. So with that, I am done with my presentation, and are there any questions?
Thanks, Ryan. Ask the planning commission if there's any questions. Make sure your mic's on so he can hear you.
Yep. Okay, any questions from the planning commission?
Yeah, I might have missed something. I'm not sure if there was another recommended action between addition of the note on the plat that it's next to a mineral extraction property and the city code applying to the streets. Was there another recommendation in between those?
The ecology comments. Just
The ecology
to incorporate, and Ryan's right. They're boilerplate. I don't know how many SEPA checklists ecology gets on their site every day, but it's probably pushing like 30 or 40, I would say. And so it's most of the time, especially with a preliminary plat like this, where there's just a paper document, there's very limited review by ecology staff. So I presume that, well, I know that those comments are boilerplate. I don't know whether they looked at it in any additional detail with those. We would recommend that ecology's comments be incorporated into the record and any conditions be applied as needed.
Thank you. How much Mazama Pocket Gopher SEPA or /SEPA stuff will be still to follow between now and building?
Well, I might ask the applicant. I could wager, or I could pose a rough guess at that. The Mazama Pocket Gopher survey, I believe, lasts for 3 years, and I think we are in year 3 here. So, provided that activity occurs relatively soon they'd be covered. I think the next window for Mazama Pocket Gopher review would be this summer of '23. And so if there's no activity or on the site in the areas where where the soils are more preferred for gopher habitat, it potentially may require another survey. The full report's in the packet, which is a little unusual for a preliminary packet, but we thought it was important to kind of document what has happened, and you can even see the transects. So I think it's a cyan color or whatever in the document. You can see our biologists walking the site and looking for gophers. By gophers, I mean gopher mounds. That's all people ever see. So there were. It's a good report if you wanted to read it. There are mole mounds on the site, and there is prairie vegetation on the site in spots. It's and Ryan looked at historic photos of the property. It's pretty clear it's being taken over by Scott's Broom. I don't know how far back did you go, Ryan, on the aerials? Like 96 or something?
It's like 1990.
Good imagery from 1990. I see the pictures in there, I think 90 and 2021.
Right. So he went back to 1990 and looked at aerials, and you can tell that the site was a lot more pristine 30 years ago than it is now. And so while it does have prairie habitat for vegetation, I think that's being crowded out by invasive species. But we put that in there just because it is an area that we thought there may be questions about.
Thank you.
Yeah, on page 3 of the staff report where it talks about the Mazama Pocket Gopher study that was done, it says was done in 2019, but in the report it says 2018 and 19. And those previous dates, 2005 through 2007, I don't think it was listed at that time, so you probably weren't looking for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It definitely was not listed. I think it was threatened, though.
So they still were.
Yeah,
probably looking for it.
and as part of the city's purchase of the property from Miles Sand and Gravel for the purposes of a wastewater treatment plant, because of the source of the money, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mayor, but I believe because of the way that the transaction occurred, there was a recommendation to have the study done, the
So they
site
did do it,
evaluated
okay.
for prairie species at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. So the city is the applicant on this. I mean, because we own the property, city owns the property. So but there is a development interest, and then the property is managed by a Thurston EDC, as you all know. The comment about the status of the streets and the roads and the driveways, when it comes time for a public comment, I'd want to hear, staff would appreciate hearing from the applicant, the developer, and the property manager on what their thoughts are about the internal circulation of the streets. It doesn't have to, we don't have to have a concrete answer right now. I mean, you're giving preliminary plat recommendations and conditions forward to the city council, who's going to make the ultimate call at the time of final.
And the city's going to retain ownership of the land, is that right? Or no?
Correct.
Yes, correct.
Right, so it's never going to be private in the sense that it wouldn't be private in the sense that the city owns it anyway. It's just a matter of whether the question that we are evaluating according to code is whether it needs to improve to a city street standard or if it's a driveway standard. There's going to be general access across the property anyway. Insofar as a police department impound lot is probably like the city's property, and you're not going to give unfettered access to that. So there may be sections of the property that don't have full access, but they would still be, the bulk of the property as envisioned in the preliminary plat looks like fairly full access.
And I should add that to be able to handle our largest fire apparatus or something like that.
Right, so he's just saying there's a emergency services minimums, and fire would make sure that their minimums are met.
If the city's retaining ownership and the idea is to lease out spaces in the buildings, what does the multiple lots provide the city the ability to do within the plat proposal?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think at one point the city had contemplated dividing the property into fewer lots, and there are statutory limitations. RCW limits your ability to further subdivide a short plat, because a short plat doesn't go through the same level. There is no public hearing on a short plat. It doesn't go through the same level of review, and so you can't come back and piecemeal a short plat. Take it from 1 to 2 to 4 to 9 to 12, and just play the game that way. So the benefit of the preliminary plat is the city can continue to divide the property as is needed, as the land manager and the EDC needs to, based on development opportunities. So right now there's a sense of a development opportunity on lot 2 and potentially on lot 3, and the applicant and the developer can kind of chat about that. But there's the bulk of the remainder parcel, parcel 5, I think could be sold off and developed or not sold off, but it could be developed as an entire parcel, or it could be chunked up
Further. Thank you.
And that division would occur in the same way that this one is.
Okay.
Oh. Good. Any other questions from the planning commission?
For staff, right?
For staff? Or staff, is that what you're
Oh,
saying?
for staff is what I asked.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, with that, does the applicant is the applicant or representative present? Okay. Do you wish to add anything to the staff report?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Should I introduce the developer or the land, or is that your?
I don't think that's necessary at this time, but you can if you want.
Do you do that as we go on?
No, so now would be a good time, I suppose.
Oh.
Sorry.
Good evening, Planning Commission. I'm Wayne Fournier. I'm the mayor and the applicant tonight for this plat thingamajig. I brought with me a representative from the EDC, who is the kind of the landlord of the space, and one of our potential developers. I'll call them up and introduce them to you guys, and they'll be available for questions. I know there was some that were asked that they may be able to answer a little better. So if you guys come up, and we'll try to do that.
Yeah, maybe if you came up and introduced yourself, then we could ask the commission if they have any questions for you guys.
I
group.
have Aslan Mead, who I believe you all know from the Economic Development Council, and the EDC, as was stated, is they are the landlords for the site.
Okay.
Good evening, Commission.
Nice.
Um,
Go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Okay, planning commission, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I guess my biggest question is, this really doesn't change anything about the operation of the area. I think it more just allows us to separate some areas that can be leased to people that want to build. Is that my understanding? I mean, the concept of the park is the same. This just allows us to take a parcel of land and lease it to somebody that may want to build there, correct?
Absolutely correct, yes. So when we started this process like 3 years ago, the EDC and the city created a lease for the EDC to maintain site control, and that was primarily to be able to get state funding for the site. We had to show that the EDC was receiving the funding, had control of the site, and we were developing the site, we were managing the site, so that worked. But now, as we have come further down the line, we are looking at what we're kind of calling like a port model, where if we're dividing it into lots, while the city will always own the land, the city would then have the ability, the EDC could step out of a full lease for the entire property, and the city could go into a direct lease with, say, like a private sector developer who wanted to build a building on one of the lots. They would own the building, the city would still maintain the land, right? And EDC steps out of that part of the lease, and you all then, the city develops a direct lease with that on that lot specifically.
But it doesn't, it still allows the city, if they want to do buildings on one of these other lots or that bigger
Like
lot,
the
it
city-
still
yeah.
doesn't limit any ability of the city
It
to do
allows
that.
the city to make a determination per lot what you want to do. The city can still build its own building on a lot or multiple lots or maintain control of the rest of the lots. That doesn't change anything there. And it doesn't change the original, vision for the park and the intention. Any private sector individual coming in to build a building would still have to agree to the tenants that were set up, that these are the type of tenants we want in the buildings, these are the type of activities we want on the property, and any new developer would have to agree to that to match the overall master plan vision for the park.
Nice, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Oh,
Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Perry Shea from Dragon Wheel.
yes, of course.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Perry Shea, 14307 Barbo Drive, Tenino, Washington. Grew up here, raised here in Tenino, my family, my wife. And been involved in this vision the last 5 to 6 years working with the EDC. I'm a former board chair at the EDC. And so this is a really, a project that comes home to me and my family, and also bringing this into Tenino. And so we're excited to be in a position where we could launch the first building. And to do that, we needed to do a land segregation, because trying to build a building and with our lender to say, well, where's the property? It's like 25 acres and it has a treatment plant, so it was really meant to subdivide that out so that we could actually move into the land lease with the city. And so we have a memorandum of understanding with the city of Tenino and the EDC to move and actually advance the building to get open by next fall, which will be really cool. And so a lot of things have to happen for that to occur. And this is that first step, is to get the preliminary plat, the final plat, and then we could launch the building process. So, and it's going to move pretty quick. And the exciting part is the EDC, through all its hard work, was able to get additional, get the grant funding to build the infrastructure that we were talking about for the plat, which is the drive aisles, the parking lots, the sidewalks, all the amenities that need to go into the plat to actually support those lots. So there's no additional, public money, city money coming into this. The benefit of the land lease is, over time, when ultimately this would have maybe 7, 8, 9 lots, would be a revenue stream for the city, because it'll have a land lease with all the buildings, over time. So that's a pretty good thing. So the city would always maintain control of the land. With the first building coming in, we actually stepped up to say, we'll take care of the maintenance of the whole park, because nobody else can. So and then we'll just work that through the land lease that we'll negotiate with the city. So those things will be ongoing as we move forward. A couple of things, just maybe a process thing, Dan, is, oh, by the way, I'm not related at all to the Ryan Shea, who's the planner. Okay. But I didn't pick up on this when I saw the staff report originally, but a couple comments on items 5 and 6 of the conditions of approval. The number 5, it says hydrants will be installed, prior to final plat. Well, there's hydrants out there now. There's additional hydrants that are going to be built with the infrastructure money that I mentioned, and that's going to be underway over the next, 2, 3, 4 months. Well, there's already water there's no buildings yet. So I'm suggesting a change here for consideration on this, is that the final plat can be recorded, and I would tie the additional hydrants to be installed before occupancy of the first building. so that nobody can occupy the building, but allows the building to move forward to get constructed while the rest of the improvements are being built. Otherwise, everything will be delayed many, many months. And I didn't pick up on that comment. The same thing with the frontage improvements. The project includes money to build a multi-purpose trail along the frontage, which I think is a nice element. Even though it's not designated, this is going to have the first building is going to have a lot of different uses, and I think a lot of activity at the site. So having that trail built along the frontage is a good amenity. And the way the project's being planned, and I know you don't see the site plan in front of you, probably just the plat, you may have seen kind of a preliminary site plan, is that it wouldn't necessarily have traditional frontage improvements right now until further development is built. Meaning, because the road's not being widened right now, it's not needed to be widened right now, but in the future, it's being planned that a left turn lane would be along the old Highway 99. And at that time, the rest of the frontage improvements could get built, like the curb, the curb and gutter primarily. The trail operates as the sidewalk, but it's like a 10-foot wide trail, along the frontage. So my recommendation for amending this would be that improvement would get built, but the final plat could be recorded. And again, those improvements have to be in place before occupancy of the first building, because physically that work can't get done for the next 3 or 4 months at the earliest, which would then delay the final plat, which would then delay the start of the building and everything else. So everything will get done if we tie it to the occupancy, because that's a nexus that nobody can operate and work on be there on the site. I would like your consideration for those amendments.
So basically, you'd like it to say prior to occupancy.
Yes, of the first
rather
building.
than prior to final plat.
Correct.
That makes sense for 5 and 6.
Correct.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and Chair, if I may, on page 7 of the PDF of the packet, there's a detailed list of the condition of approval number 6, and that whole paragraph on street frontage improvements. It does allow for street frontage improvements to be constructed and approved prior to issuing of building permits. It's in the second sentence there of that chapter, so that's not inconsistent with code.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would need to get our building permit, to build, but my suggestion would be that it would be at occupancy of the building so that we could advance the project. And if we can do that, we could have this open in September. And I think those are my only comments, everyone, on that. And like I said, we're excited to be part of this and looking forward to groundbreaking and seeing this come to a reality. Unless you have questions for me.
I just had one question on a comment you made about the hydrants. Now, I'm not real clear. You said there is a hydrant out there now, or is there?
There's actually infrastructure that was built a couple of years ago with excess money from the first grant that the city received when they extended the water line out there. I think there's 3 hydrants on the property now. It loops around the entire property. So beyond what we're showing lots 2 and 3, it actually goes down through lot 5 as well. It's just that additional hydrants will be built that will be more adjacent to the building for fire flow and fire access and accessibility. So those are the additional hydrants that would come in.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because I would think the fire department, even during construction, would want some source of water out there.
Yeah, and then I
couldn't
see about it,
remember if
we've
there's
got, I think
hydrants.
there's 3 that we can tap from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the commission for the applicant? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, and now is the time for the public testimony portion of the hearing. We have a sign-up sheet that we'll move through. Please state your name and your address. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes, but there aren't a lot of people here, so if you run over, probably won't hold you to it. But try to. Oh, no one signed up. All right. Well, I guess there are no public comments. That's sad. I will take it. Okay. Applicant obviously doesn't have any comments in response to the public testimony. Okay. If there's no further testimony, applicants' comments, or comments from staff, the public hearing is now closed. The commission will now discuss, deliberate, and render a decision. Okay. Do we want to discuss further?
I would just make some comments. You know, I've kind of
Sure.
been part of this whole development, a lot of it when I was on the city council, and to me, this provides some additional opportunities for the city to move forward with this by putting these lots that people can lease from instead of the city being required to upfront money and build a structure on its own. So I think it's a positive thing for the city. From what I've seen, I can't see any changes in the concept of the plan, so I don't have concerns there that we're changing kind of what this property is all about. So I'm supportive of moving forward with this. I think there's a couple of changes that we wanted to add on there, but I very much support this, and I think it'll be a great opportunity to attract other applicants that want to build out there. So.
Thank you. Any other discussion from the commissioners?
Maybe just some clarification on the trail frontage improvements piece that you brought up, Mr. Shea. Did you say that there is incorporated in the plans now a trail that's going to be in the front that basically can double as a sidewalk for now? Is that my understanding?
Yeah, thank you, Aslan. Yeah, so
That's the actual site check has.
Okay, great.
This would be the whole time, and this would be, the idea would be to extend the Yellow Tenino, or the Yellow Tenino Trail.
Yeah,
if possible.
we've talked about doing that.
that graphic shows what the intent is. So it'd be a multi-purpose facility, which is better, more than just a sidewalk. Like I said, it'd be, and that could allow, the reason we did that is just with, this bill, the rodeo center out there, this development, and the buildings out here, the ability to then eventually connect back to the Tenino Trail is not that far, and that'd be a nice linkage. And so we felt that was a nice amenity to include in, and have it up away from the road too. So it's not traffic on the road. Pedestrians aren't walking near the street. So that's the proposal and the concept that is moving forward to be constructed, and we felt that was that is a good element of the frontage improvement.
And I think there's been a lot of work done on that plan to extend that trail too already.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully at some point we can connect those.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we've talked about it on the planning commission quite a bit. It's been a while, but.
We're submitting a grant request Friday for transportation alternative dollars to do the design phase of the West Trail. So we're getting close. And the county is looking at shifting their priority from the Gate Belmore Trail to the Tenino Trail, like as we speak. And they have money for construction.
Oh. Are we all in agreement that we should add the changes requested by Perry Shea for conditions 5 and 6?
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially looking at the building season and how things have to line up. Makes sense.
Okay. Well, if there's no further discussion, I move that the Planning Commission approve this preliminary plat application based on the standards, findings, conclusions, and recommendations stated in the staff report. Also, the stated conditions that were provided to us during the report from the adjoining property owner and ecology, and incorporate the modifications to conditions 5 and 6 to say prior to building occupancy rather than prior to final plat. So I move that we approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay. Well, with that, our meeting is concluded. I don't think we have any new business. We hadn't planned any unfinished business for the evening. So,
Can I just with that awareness that we need the final plat to happen before, like, that we will, it'll be coming back around faster than not faster, right? So, yeah, well, I know we already adjourned, so.
you can go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to make that comment, like that in the sequence of getting started, the civil design is going to be done this week. We want to be going out to bid and getting to work on the property. We want to, at the same time, start working towards the building construction. And so I'm just saying that, we hope to finalize that plat and have it come back out to you before too long. So,
Okay.
thank you.
What's
Thank
the
you all.
time frame on that, do you think?
Yeah, so the final plat will go to the city council for review. So there's no more
next
swings
Okay,
at
so
the
it's
planning
not
commission.
a commission. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. then-
We did our bit.
Yeah. All right. You're done. All right. Thanks, you all.
All right. No worries. Okay. With that, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming out this evening.